Here we are, Royal Park in Windsor. We'll be coming down there later where that cyclist has just come from, but the start is here. We do a little bit of a loop, come back round there and carry on, not up here but to the right. So this is the start, and it's slightly uphill at the start, so a little bit of a drag at the beginning, nothing too steep, and you can see it's absolutely lovely riding in the park here. This is, what should we say, reasonably early in the morning, and other cyclists out, as you can see, enjoying the park. I mean, it will get a bit full later on with more pedestrians, people walking dogs and things, so good time to get in there quite early on. And you can see the horse trails going across the road there. You'll see plenty of horses too when you're riding around the park. Now, this is a royal park owned by the King, and the cars inside are usually the people who work on the estate and manage it. Everybody else is probably a visitor. And this has got several roads, so there's several ways you can ride around the park. It's not a fixed loop, say, for example, Richmond Park would be. There's plenty to choose from, and I've just chosen this particular loop, which is going to slightly take us out of the park at one point, and we'll go round the perimeter on the outside, but come back in round by the polo pitches. And on the day I recorded this, there was polo on. That rider going down there, now we could cut through there, and that would actually take us where we're going, but in order to make the race 16 kilometres long, I took this slightly wider loop. Now, both of those two roads have what we're about to see now, which is a great big descent and a rise afterwards. So really and truly, if you've got the momentum as you go down the descent, which you're beginning to see now, you should get up the other side with ease. And certainly riding in on the platforms, it's not particularly difficult. We actually leave the main road to go down this descent now, and you can see the rise on the other side as we hurtle down towards it. So nothing too untoward at the moment in terms of climbs. You've gone up, you're now going down, you're about to go up again, but it's undulating, it's not steep climbs, and we haven't had any sharp bends. That one left turn that we've just done is fairly sweeping around, so you won't struggle too much with brake on corners or anything like that at this stage. Now, when we get to the top of this incline, we are going to turn left, and we'll still be in the park, and it will still be quite fast and furious, I think, during this section. Now, as I say, there's not a lot of difficult climbing at all, and in fact the latter part of the race, when we get out of the park, now here's the left turn, you can judge it for yourself. It's fairly rounded, so nothing too dangerous. You're not going to have to slow down too much on that corner, and you can see the sort of sweeping bends that they have here make it very good for riding. It's not too many people on I suppose with their horses and dogs and things like that. It can be a very fast ride around here, but it's not like other parks like Richmond Park. This is not a traffic park, so you're not doing traffic speeds. You can when it's empty like this, but on other occasions you will have to slow down to take care, because there'll be children and dogs and pets and things. You can see it's fairly flat, and it's well maintained as well, this royal park, so the surface is quite nice. That won't make any difference, of course, when you're racing this online, as everything's going to be smooth as it can be, subject to any problems you've got with your own smart trainer. And as you can see, this allows for a bit of speed along this section, and I think this is going to be a fairly fast race all round. You can see it's slightly undulating, you can see it sort of dips down and goes up again, but you're hardly going to notice this during the race. It's just slightly undulating and will feel relatively flat, and certainly if you're getting the draft from other riders, you're hardly going to notice this at all. So speed should be good. As I say, slightly uphill on the start, we've got another couple of cyclists, and just those little dips, probably about as hard a climb as you're going to get coming out of that last dip that we looked at. But of course, the momentum taking you down is going to help you halfway up that, so it shouldn't be a problem. There is one more small climb just before we leave the park, but again, I think because you're going to go down into it and back up again, it's not going to feel too difficult. Maybe the last couple of metres might suddenly feel a little bit more resistant, but generally speaking, your momentum should take you through most of these. Slowing down a little bit just to make sure the horses aren't disturbed. And we all have to work together in the park, and there's quite a good rapport, I think, between cyclists, dog owners and horse owners. As I say, this is not the sunniest day, though the sun was coming out as we went round the course, so it started not quite as sunny as it ended, but not so many people out. It wasn't particularly warm, and as you can see, it's this was the dog running out in front of me there. Just a moment's hesitation, and that took a break for the dog, and took a little bit of the momentum out of this. Is the climb I was talking about just before you leave the park. So as I say, it's not particularly steep. I'm probably having to work a little bit harder than I would have done had that dog not suddenly run out almost in front of me. When you get through the gates, you're nearly there. There's a little bit of wooded area, and then we're out of the park into the main road. Now the main road itself is undulating just as this is, but again I don't foresee any of the undulations really signifying great places to attack, things like that. That gate is not actually the end of the park. I'm not quite sure why there is a gate there. The park does seem to have gates within it in itself, so I don't know if that's to sort of keep certain animals in or something like that. We're going to go out to the actual gate in a moment. We're going to swing round and then drop down to the main road as we turn left up here. Now this bend again, I don't think this one's going to be particularly noticeable in terms of slowing down, whether you auto brake in or have to brake yourself. As you can see, it's fairly sweeping there as we pass on the cyclist and into the park. There is a nice cafe in the middle, so you can have a coffee there. If you go all the way through the park, there's a cafe, very, very popular with cyclists in the heart of Windsor. I have to say I don't go there very often because it is too popular and very busy, but they have a lot of bike parking out the back, which makes it a very good destination, just as long as you quite happy to sort of queue up a little while for your coffee. There'll be plenty of other cyclists there, so plenty of cycling banter going on. A good place to go, really. Just coming out of the park now as we go through the side gate and drop down off the curb. Now this is the main road, and this is, as I say, undulating. You can see the railings on the left are actually the perimeter of the park, so we're right on the edge of the park here, and you can see it's undulating, going up a little bit at the moment. And it'll be like this all the way along until we do a left-hand turn, and there's two left-hand turns. One keeps us in the perimeter of the park, and the other one will take us back into the park around by the polo pitches. More of that later. So as we look at these undulations, few cyclists on the way to the park coming up this incline as we go down it. You can see it's still fairly fast though. It's not a hill that you're going to have to grind up. I don't think it's going to split packs. They might just take a little bit of toll on some riders who drop off the packs, but I don't think it's going to be significant. I think to split packs in this race, you're going to have to push out of the front very, very hard and force people to chase you. If you can create a gap, that's great, but of course you'll be out there solo. We're not even halfway round the race yet, so it's not really, I think, good attacking territory. What you can do, as I say, if you push hard on the front, maybe you can thin the peloton down a little bit just by the attrition, and anybody who falls off when it's going very, very fast has very little chance of getting back on. And so therefore, as I say, the undulations may help, I suppose, weed out a few people from the peloton, but they're not, I think, going to be significant attacks off the front. Here's the first left again. You're not even going to notice this when you're riding, because this is sweeping. It hardly looks like a bend. It's just a curve, and it's a very wide arc, so nothing to slow you down here. Still on the perimeter of the park, you can see the fence on the left is effectively the edge of the park. I mean, there will be the odd building like this one behind on the other side. Some of them are of course owned by the royal family, and homes for people who work in the park. Others will do little incursions into the area where somebody at some point, no doubt, has probably purchased a little bit of the land for some reason or another. And it's quite a big park. It's got lakes in the middle. There's even a totem pole, which is been by a tribe of American Indians from Canada, I believe. Just a totem pole in there. And Savile Gardens is the gardens where you can sort of see all the horticulture. But it is massive, and as you see, we can ride around quite a lot. There's even a village for the workers in there, plenty of statues of kings and queens over the years, and you can sort of live here for a long time and not have seen all of it. It is quite a big park as we hurtle down. Now we're going to turn left and back into the park, and you'll see that once we get back into the park, you might just catch a little sign as we go through pointing out that it's £20 a car if you're coming in to watch the polo. Now, because the polo games were on, some of the gates were locked, which impeded a little bit. It wasn't the end of the world, but some of the gates that had been open were locked just to ensure the polo crowds went through the main gate. And there were a few extra people around, I think because of the polo. It hadn't started at the time I was filming this, as I say, it was quite early in the morning. You see, the sun's just beginning to come out, and it is getting a little bit nicer in the race. So we're going up here a little bit. It's nothing too difficult as we just go over that little ridge. And head ever more towards the re-entry into the park. Park, of course, as I say, on the left as we slightly going downhill now, just before the entrance to the park, which will be coming up very, very shortly. So look out for that. I will have to slow down to get through the gates, but apart from that, it's a bit of a bend. You can see it's a 90-degree bend. I'm very lucky the gates were open actually. There's a little sign, £20 if you've got a carload and you want to watch the polo. As we go past these cyclists taking a picture of themselves in the park. I don't know how far they've ridden and whether that was the destination, and hence a little bit of a picture to show that they've reached it. But again, it's reasonably clear of pedestrians and obstacles here. It's a good time to be out in the park very early. As I say, this particular stretch of the park can get very, very busy. There's a little cafe on the right which is past, and we go past some nice little lakes. You can see a lake on the right there, and in front filming. So I had to shout just to point out that I was about to spoil his picture by coming round on the right as we go over the bridge, over the water. I find this part of the park rather pretty actually. It is nice to ride through, but it will get busy later on. You'll see quite a few other cyclists out and about in the park at this time of the morning. It will be much more pedestrians later on, and presumably in this section lots and lots of cars coming in for the polo. Now the polo will have been sort of on its way to being set up about now, so there will be some people coming in for it already, people involved in setting it up, working on it or whatever. And in a minute we're going to catch up with a bus which is clearly bussing in some people, maybe hospitality workers, who knows, as we just ease round this other cyclist. And it is such a pleasure riding on such smooth tarmac on this particular course. You can see still not bendy either, so keeping a nice steady speed up there without any interruption. So this will suit the fast guys, I think, this particular course. It's only near the end that you get the tricky bends that are going to kick in, automatic braking, or you're going to have to brake if you need to survive. Now, a few speed bumps in here, slowing down for the horses, of course. I did say some nice water on the side there, one of the little lakes, as we get around the horses. And there is a bit of a climb here. This is, I think, probably the climb of the route, really. I mean, it's probably a little bit harder than the one right at the start, although you're coming into it with some momentum. But it's not very long. You can see it's not very steep, so it depends how fast you're riding and how hard you're pushing, really, as to whether this causes you any problems. Certainly if you were casually riding, this would present no problems at all. In terms of racing, if somebody's a little bit stronger than you and they're getting up it faster, this is probably going to hurt. But as I say, I don't think it really shows up as a significant climb when you put it online. And as I say, even in real life, it's not particularly steep. Just maybe this last little bit, starts getting over 5-7%, but it's not very long. And you can see the top just coming up now. So there's nothing to worry about, I think, here, but just be aware that this course is undulating until the end, and then you've got this massive descent down Crimp Hill, which we'll see towards the end, followed by, as we go through Old Windsor and Datchet, you get the sharp tricky bend. So the skills really come in at the end. There is a sharp bend on the descent, and I'll point that out to you as we go down the descent, and we just round off this last little bit of this climb. Now you'll see the signs on the right will tell you that it's Guards Polo Club, so this is where the polo is. Now the actual course just goes straight on there and does a left, but there was a bus just parked up there, so I took this other loop round. It's not significant, but this right-hander will be a lot sharper when you go down the other route, and you'll see where it comes out in a second. As I say, it was not particularly, I didn't cut out anything in terms of distance. It was just a case of if I went down the other one, the bus load of people would have probably blocked me. So here, it just comes out here, so you'll come out there and do a sharp right-hander, whereas we had a much more curved right-hander on this video. Now, these are the polo courses to the right. You can see the fences up, and the camera doesn't really pick out the polo courses that well. You see one of these typical sort of Royal Memorials on the left there. Not sure who that's for. Plenty of cyclists coming out of the park here as we go past the polo grounds. And then so that's Guards Polo Club, and I think the royal family, those that play polo, are probably members of Guards Polo Club. I've certainly, many years ago, seen Charles, who's now king, when he was a younger man, playing polo there. So I assume that it is the club has got royal patronage, and it's certainly, being inside the Great Park, which is royal territory, of course, I suspect it is the club to go to if you are a member of the Windsor family. This is beautifully smooth tarmac and dead flat here. So the undulations, the worst of the undulations are actually behind us now. It will be flat for quite a while. We're going to go into that wooded area, and so we complete that loop that we did from the start. So in a minute we're going to go past where we started on the left, and we'll be on to the straight bit, the tail of the whole ride in a moment. You can see where the wooded area is, and you remember that start. I showed you the cyclist who was coming along here, basically coming along and turning up the road where we started. But we will be going straight on, of course, we won't be turning up yet. Now, I think these gates were shut because of the polo. They're not usually shut. Normally you could hurdle through here. So I was a bit concerned as I hurtled towards these, wondering if I was going to have to stop and work my way through the gates, and luckily a car came the other way and the gates started opening, and the only thing I really had to slow down for was this cyclist going through in front of me. But once through, there's the car that fortunately caused the gate opening, and as you can see I'm probably going a little bit slower because of that obstacle, but nevertheless, if that were not the case, you can see that it's still flat and smooth tarmac. A few of the cottages on the right, as I say, people involved in the royal family one way or another live in these places. Some, I think, many of the royal family have had houses on here. There are some houses that are used by royal family members, and I am not sufficiently knowledgeable to say which ones, but I'm sure that at some point most of the princes have used a house in this park as a residence for a while. I suppose Harry probably isn't anymore, but here we are. So we're back into this wooded area where we started. That's the start line where the guy in the grey shirt was just going up to our left. That's where we started. So now we're out on the tail of the course, and we're heading sort of north, I suppose northeast, with a sort of kind of swing around to the west just before the end to go over one of those little horse bridle path areas where the horses have kicked the sand onto the road. We're now heading towards the exit of the park. It's rather a shame. In the old days you could ride straight on, and you went out on a hilltop and you could see for miles right across Windsor and Slough, and there was a big statue called a horse, and you could look right down the long walk to the castle. It was amazing, but they stopped cyclists going down there because it was just too busy, and I'm sure that some cyclists didn't take a lot of care, and no longer can you cycle if you go straight on. There's a section that says straight on. It's got an amazing view across Windsor and Slough, but you'll have to push your bike if you go So consequently, we are forced to leave the park and turn right, but that's not a problem. As I say, we'll see where the pink house is on the left. We're going to do a sharp 90-degree right there, so just remember that one as we come towards the end. Now, very shortly we're going to be going down Crimp Hill, which will be a left turn in a little while. So here's the right turn. This is going to take us out of the park now, and when we turn left, we'll be doing the descent of Crimp Hill, and that is going to be very, very interesting. You can break away on descents, and if you really pedal hard on a descent, you can actually pull away from other riders, and it'd be interesting to see whether that descent causes problems. We shall have to see. Now here's the gate out of the park. I'm going to have to slow down a little bit because this one's shut, and I'm going to have to go through the side gate and cautiously, like a bit of a wimp, weave my way around the puddle, but there we are. And can't get my cycling jersey muddy, can I? So just easing up towards the cyclists now, and just shouting out to let the guy know I'm going on his inside and around on the right for these two. And we will be turning left very, very shortly and into Crimp Hill. Now I say we're into Crimp Hill, actually the first couple of 100 metres are probably very, very slightly uphill. They'll feel flat, I think, in the race, but they could be very, very slightly uphill. As I say, probably a gradient of 1% or less, but it doesn't start descending straight away. But once it does start descending, you hit the steepest bit, and at the bottom of the steepest bit is this sharp left-hand turn, which I was telling you about earlier. So you could have a very, very high speed. As we turn left, this is the Crimp Hill Road now, and as I say, it's first maybe 100, 200 metres, very gently uphill. They'll look flat visually as we go around. I didn't really perceive them as being uphill, so I just happened to look at my bike computer as I went along here and noticed it was very, very slightly uphill. But it turns, and once it goes down, it's the steep section on Crimp Hill, and you will get a high speed very, very quickly, but it takes you towards that sharp left-hand bend. And where the car's coming out, this is where the gradient is going to change from very gently uphill into a downhill descent, and here we go. The descent has started now. The very, very steep bit is about to come any moment now. We're heading down the steep bit as we go past these signs. Here it is. This is the steep section. Now, as I say, right at the bottom of the steep section is this left-hand turn, and whether or not you're going to have to sort of be very, very careful and brake hard on that is going to be seen, but it is reasonably sharp and you will be at a high speed, so the braking effect on this corner is to be remembered. Now, it might look sweeping, but of course it's not quite as it's the speed, I think, that makes you have to brake rather than the sharpness of the bend. Now, this is fast and flat for quite a while now on this descent, and the tricky bends come after the descent. As we go down here, house on the right was once Elton John's mansion many years ago, in the heyday of his career, and I think that I'm not sure how many years he lived there, but anyway, that's on the right there. Now, the gradient gets a little bit more gentle as we get down the hill, but you've got the momentum from the top, so it keeps you going for a while. These sort of bends, you know, there's a bend sign there to the right, but it's really nothing in particular. You'll keep the momentum. This is a fantastic descent. We'll love it in real life. Hope you enjoy it in the virtual world, riding online. But it really is a great descent, and it will create a lot of speed. Now, you'll know when we're kind of finally at the bottom, because just after it goes flat, we'll do a sharp right-hand bend. Just look out for that. And then, although I suppose it is arguably very, very gently downhill, it will seem flat for most of the rest of the ride as we hit the River Thames Valley. And as we ride effectively alongside the river, you won't see it much, but we're riding sort of in conjunction with the river's route, and that will mean that it's fairly, fairly flat. Still ever so gently going downhill now, and as I say, the bend there to the left will be sweeping as we go past the Old Windsor sign. Old Windsor is a couple of miles, or maybe a mile or so, from Windsor itself, so it's a slightly different place. Still ever so gently downhill when you're on this section though, so the momentum will keep you going right up until the right hand bend. And we're not there yet, so you can see this is going to be quite fast and furious. Now the thing is, it's all going to change because it's going to get a little bit more intricate on the flat sections, because there are some tricky bends. Now here's the right hander. It's reasonably sweeping, but I think, as I say, with that speed you might have some braking kicking in as we head down towards the river. Now this section here, as I say, I would describe it as flat as a general sort of observation, but I think it might very well be very slightly downhill, but not a lot. So if you've got momentum around that bend and you didn't brake too much, or you weren't, the auto braking didn't kick in too much, you might still have good flow on this, and this might be a good attack point. Now the reason I say that is because it's probably a good idea to get ahead of everybody else for those intricate little bends that are coming up, and they're coming up reasonably soon, and we'll point them out as we go through them, but there are a series of them, and they're very likely to kick in auto braking, and or if you are using braking, you're going to have to brake to get the best out of these bends and avoid any crashes. I think they're certainly crashable bends. As I say, I think that will depend on the speed. I think it's I think because everybody's going to be going fast after this descent and the general flatness of it, I think that is why the bends, I think, come as a little bit of a culture shock after that. So now we're down to where I would say it's pretty flat, and we've got one bridge to go over, but apart from that, we're now at the level of the river, so we're going to be pretty much flat all the way, apart from that one little rise over the bridge where we cross the river. So flat to the finish from here. This is Old Windsor, and it's at the other end of this road where the tricky little cornering is going to kick in. So let's see how it all plays out. Of course, the road layouts here will look slightly different on virtual courses, because they will look like bends. There won't be any side roads, there won't be roundabouts. You know, if you turn right at a roundabout on this, it will look like a bend when you ride it on one of the platforms. But as I say, you'll get the gist of where the lefts and rights actually are as we head towards Windsor and through the heart of Old Windsor. Well, the houses either side of us at the moment don't look particularly old, and perhaps a more modern version of Old Windsor. Perhaps the original Windsor was here before William the Conqueror built the castle there, the Castle of Windsor. Now here's the first tricky section. You won't really notice this. It's probably more tricky to ride this in real life than it is online, as that one. That one is a little bit of a kind of swerve just to get into this road rather than a corner. As I say, the castle at Windsor was built in the 1100s by William the Conqueror, the Norman conqueror who became king of England at the time, because the United Kingdom hadn't been formed. And as I say, I suspect that Old Windsor is probably the original Windsor, and where he built the castle on the hill for a good view down the river, it became the new Windsor. Would be my guess. I'm no historian, so I can't confirm any of that. Now that was a little left turn there, so that's the first of this series of corners that's going to make the finishing difficult. And the second one's coming up here. Now the traffic layout here is a little bit unusual. It is a sort of, I'm going to say it's a sort of roundabout. It is and it isn't, but it's a little bit of a one-way system here. So there's a left there, and then you do almost a U-turn here as we cut round and circle back to the road we were originally on as we go through this little gyratory one-way system. So you get a left, a sweeping arc round and a bit of a U-turn to the right, and then this sweeping left here. So 3 or 4 corners in quick succession coming out of Old Windsor as we head out of Old Windsor and towards Datchet now. The only thing of any note here in terms of cycling is going to be the bridge in a moment. You can see that little fake castle in front of us, and that's a back entrance to Windsor Castle. The building on the left is, I'm not sure if King Charles is going to keep that, but it's Duchy of Cornwall's farm shop on the left, and the little castle is an entrance to Windsor Castle that the royals use, so you don't see them coming in and out of the castle. Now, just after this is the bridge, and we can see the bridge just coming up on the horizon there. That takes us over the River Thames. That's going to be the only little sort of incline for the whole of the rest of the race, because we're now going to follow the rivers route into Datchet, where we finish. But as we go around Datchet village, there's deliberately, I make no apologies for this, deliberately a couple of bends just to make the finish a little bit more exciting. So be very, very sure that you're aware of what's coming up at the finish. Now this is the bridge as we go over the River Thames, and we get a bit of an advantage of the descent taking us onto the fast road into Datchet before those two turns near the end. So as I say, apart from the two turns at the end, you're going to be going very, very fast now. Everybody battling for position. People on the front may be stretching out the peloton, trying to see if they can thin it out a little bit and get a few people fall off the back, because this will be a fast sweeping road towards Datchet and the finishing zone. I'm going to call it the zone because the finishing line is not necessarily going to be as fast as this road. We shall see. And so dead flat as you'd expect, going along a sort of reasonably shallow river valley. Where I suppose you might argue that mountain rivers are a little bit less flat. But of course this is the business end of the River Thames as it's heading towards the estuary. It's not up in the hills where it starts, of course. London, it gets a lot wider at London, of course. Go past the Datchet sign, so we're into Datchet now, and we've started seeing the buildings and the village emerging very, very soon. You see the first few outbuildings of Datchet on the right there. It'll get busier soon. Less buildings on the left, because the river's actually on the left. You remember we just went over the bridge and swept round to the left to follow its course, if you like. A few buildings there on the left anyway. Getting closer and closer to the village. So when we get to the village, you get that first 90-degree turn. It's both right-hand turns, and you'll need to be very aware of them for the sprint finish. There's some real cyclists coming out of Datchet, heading towards Windsor, maybe the park, maybe the cafes, who knows. We're into the village now. You can see the buildings increasing. It's a little bit of, I suppose, a little bit of some trees, and then suddenly that will change on the left. You'll see the river, and when we see the river, that's where the right-hand bend is going to be. So be very, very aware of what's coming your way along this section. Here we go. Here are the trees I'm talking about. Just after these trees is where we get the right turn into the village. And I think it's a big tall tree. It's shortly after that, I would suggest. As we see the coach coming the other way. We've got speed humps, and now as we just curve a little bit to the left, it takes us nearer to the river, and there you can see just ahead, the river's just on our left now. These are little boat yards. You can't quite see over the fence, but we are now right by the river, and at the end of this wall is pretty much where we're going to have to do that right-hand turn. It's coming up right now. You can just about see the boats on your left. The right-hand turn coming round here now, held up by that car a little bit, and we're into the village. So that's the first of the right-handers. We're very, very close to the finishing line now, but there's one more little twist to come. So they ain't over yet. As we hurtle along here, picking up speed. Anything that's been slowed down at that corner will be picking up speed, but there's another corner to come. We go over the level crossing. We head towards Datchet Village Green where the finish is. So there's the level crossing over the railway. Now we're into the village itself. A couple more cyclists going the other way, and this is the village green. And as we turn round to the right, the finishing line is very, very shortly after that. It's a very small mini roundabout in real life, but that's a little bit more sweeping than the last one, and it takes us up to the finishing line. Wishing you the very best of luck in the real race.